Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Crushing Land. Happy to be with you here today as we discuss another important topic to your land investing business. And what we're going to talk about today is actually something that pretty much everybody that's starting off worries about. And strangely enough, some people that get advanced still worry about it themselves. And that is making confident decisions regarding particularly the purchase of land without having a ton of information or with having limited information on the property. And part of that is all the perspective. What I view as a lot of information, a lot of people view as limited information, not enough to make a decision about the property. And so that's what we're going to talk about today and help you to overcome that, help you to see past that, and being able to go forward with confidence when it comes to your land investing. And one of the things that we hear all the time early on from people in particular is that they need to do deals around where they are, right? They need to do deals in their area. And people hearing that may think, well, that makes sense because they're comfortable with that area, right? They know that area and that's the reason, but that's not generally the reason that people do that. We've had students that have gone against our direction and have picked areas near where they live when they shouldn't have because they weren't really good areas to invest in, but they still decided to do it. And it wasn't because they were comfortable with that area, and things like that, because they knew it well. That's part of it, but the main reason isn't that they could go see the properties, right? They wanted to put their own eyes on that property, and they felt that there was no way they could possibly move forward with this without doing this. And I can tell you that over 1,000 deals, I've literally only seen a handful, and by a handful, I mean like less than 10 of them in person. And the reason that I even went and looked at those properties, two different reasons. One, very, very early on, I did the exact same thing. I felt like I had to see them, and I realized very quickly I don't. And two, I was working in an area that I was actually looking at buying property for myself, but the potential of building on, and so I went and looked at it from that perspective as opposed to just the investing perspective. But had it been for the investing side, I would not have done that. In fact, those properties that I went and looked at, I realized were not ideal for what I wanted to do, but they still worked for buying and selling and for investing. And so that's a key right there, right? Sometimes we have to get out of our own minds because we look at it and we say, well, it has to fit this parameter. Who set that parameter? You do, right? You're setting that parameter based on what you like or dislike about something. And in reality, you don't need to do that, right? Because there is a buyer for that property. And I have said over and over and over again that out of all the deals that I've done over the years, only a few properties would I actually have been interested in using myself. The rest of them I have zero interest in, but yet there was buyers for those. So looking at it, sometimes we're like, oh, I have to see it, but why do you have to see it? So that you can have your own perspective, your own viewpoint of it that may be flawed and it may lead you down a way that you don't need. So the key is getting information about the property. And a lot of people look at it and they say, well, it's just limited information. And that's true to some extent. And the reason that it's limited is because it's land. If it was a house, there'd be so much more to do. You'd have to do, you'd be going out and you'd do inspections and you'd be checking, the systems and, the furnace. You'd be checking the AC or the heat pump or whatever it is that's in your area. You'd be checking those things. You'd be checking the roof. You'd be checking the plumbing. You'd be checking the electrical. You'd be checking the structure. You'd be checking the foundation. You'd be, all of these different things don't exist with vacant land. So when it comes down to limited information, the reason that we talk about moving forward with limited information is because that's all we need. It's just land, so you don't need nearly as much information as you do in other forms of real estate. That's one of the reasons that makes it better. It's one of the reasons that makes it simpler. You can still do the exact same profit potentials, but with a whole lot less legwork because of that. So what does that limited information look like? Well, really, it's just finding out what can be done on that property, right? It's just finding out information about that property, right? What's there for utilities? Are there utilities? things like that. What's the slope look like? I've done a video on topography. So what does that do? How much does that change things? Of course, obviously, the comps. What are properties selling for in this area that are similar to this property? Right, and that's important. That does have to be similar. It's amazing. I've seen people all the time. They focus so much on the comps, and they have an acre of land here, and they have an acre of land here. This acre's on pavement. This acre doesn't even have access. This acre's flat. This acre's sloped, and they say that they're exactly the same thing. Of course not. Right? That's like comparing a ranch house with a mansion. It doesn't work, right? And so, you understand it when it comes to houses, but when you're doing comps for land, it still has to be similar types of property. And so that's what you can move forward with limited information. And from there, you can determine how you're going to handle things. And one of the things that let's use that it doesn't have sewer. So it needs a septic tank. So that means that the property needs to perk, right? So what does that look like? Well, we've done a crushing land with a soil scientist. You can watch that. It's a full-length one where we go over different things. But just talking about this here for a moment, what does that look like? Well, different things that you can move forward with limited information. Just hearing that needs a septic tank, does that mean, okay, well, it needs septic, so that's a red flag. I have to walk away. Well, no, right? What's already been done in the area? Are the soils the same across the board? And there's houses the entire way down the street except for this one lot, right? What does the soils look like? How large is the property, right? If it's many acres, what's the chances that there are good soils, right? Is that a concern in that area? There's a lot of different things that you can take this deep with that we do while we're looking at this and getting that information. And what do you do with that information? Well, then you make a decision based on that, right? Had pieces of property that we knew, not that there were perk issues, but basically it needed a septic. And, it's large acreage. It's not going to really be a problem. And we're buying it for such a discount, we weren't really concerned about it. What do buyers in the area ask for, right? We've got areas where we sell property all the time and buyers never, ever, ever, ever ask about a perk test, even when it comes to needing a septic. There's other areas where that's like the first thing that they ask, right? So what's common in that area? So those are different things that you can look at and then take that information and move forward with it. And so inside of our course, inside of our training, we give you guys the questions that we ask to move forward confidently with this thing. And that's looking at these different aspects. What does that lead you to? It will lead you to making a decision. This is where we said you don't have to choose the same exit strategy each and every time, right? If you're not confident based on the information that you have, even if you have the money, you have a piece of property that you're buying for $20,000 that you think is worth $50,000, and you're like, man, I can make $30,000. I want to try this, but you run into some questions. Ooh, I'm not sure if I'm really ready to tie up that money. I'm not really sure if that makes sense. Well, then you can use a different exit strategy, right? Or you look at it and everything is lining up and you're like, wow, I feel super confident about this, right? There's no soil issues, or it has public utilities, or whatever it may be. This is obviously a home run deal. I feel confident closing that. So going down that path, using that due diligence checklist that we provide inside the course, going through all of that, that will help you to make these decisions with limited information. Again, it's limited because it's land. We don't have to dig as deep, right? We just have to find out a few different things because it only relates to the land itself. And obviously, if you're looking to go deeper with something, some people are, right? If you're looking to go deeper, if you're looking to, get into subdividing, or you're looking to get into entitlements or something like that, then obviously that's another step of this where you're taking your information and going deeper with it. But for just everyday buy and sell, flipping, owner financing, whatever you may do when it comes to selling it, holding it, doesn't matter, however you're doing that, but just doing it with that same piece of property, you can move forward confidently with the limited information if you follow the steps correctly. So if you have any questions on that, please reach out to us. You can check out our course. Again, we get into all of that with you. We give you the due diligence checklist to help you to ask these right questions, move forward confidently, and close more deals because of it. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Crushing Land. We'll catch you next week as we discuss another relevant land investing topic.